Hello, you. Welcome to Geekism. Welcome back to another MeanderVille. These are the time-lapse episodes where we put together the brunt of the work in MeanderVille, our Planet Coaster 2 big project. I don't know what you would call it, really. We've got a few different things going on in Planet Coaster 2, but this is definitely our sort of big main project where we're really spending a lot of time on theming, on stylistic choices, on the reasons we're doing stuff, as opposed to just kind of throwing stuff down and having fun with it like we perhaps do in some other series. So today I'm working almost exclusively in Testudo, which is our pirate area of the park. We're sort of doing classic pirate area here. To an extent, we're not really going shantytown. That's definitely one thing I noticed that I've seen a lot in my sort of reference tours when I look around a lot of different parks. And one thing I noticed is that a lot of Pirates is shanty, which we've definitely had a play around with before in Planet Coaster 1 and Planet Coaster 2. And it is a theme that I enjoy putting together, but I really wanted to try something a little bit different here and something akin to the more colonial looking areas of places like Disneyland. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. I think one of the reasons why Pirates is so popular as a theme, though, for theme parks is perhaps that shantytown theming is actually a fairly straightforward thing to do. It just requires untreated wood and rope, and that's kind of it, really. It's a theme you can do on a real budget and actually make look good. I imagine if somebody said to me, here's, 50 grand, I want you to theme this area of a park, I think Pirate would absolutely be one of the things I really seriously look at, because I think you can do a lot with the money when it comes to how far your theming goes. To compare it to something like a sci-fi area, where you'd have to get everything sort of a little bit more sort of custom made using fiberglass and what have you, it absolutely makes sense as to why Pirate is such a sort of well-documented theme within theme parks. I think there's also something to be said again about just how Pirates are they're almost timeless in their nostalgia at this point. I think though obviously most areas are basing their pirate depictions off of the sort of Treasure Island boom of pirate narratives. The whole having a Southern English accent and me, aha, Jim Ladd and mateys and all that sort of stuff. Like most of what we think of as pirates, it's quite specific to a couple of different pieces of fiction, most notably Treasure Island, and then the adaptation of that from Disney. So obviously that's where we're getting most of our reference points from, but I wanted to here try and do something that's not necessarily based more in realism or history, but gives an idea of a sense of presence about the place. The idea being that this is a port town that pirates have overtook rather than just a straight up pirates live here. So most of the building structures are sort of classical Renaissance or revival style buildings, and then there's just sort of pirate elements added to them, such as flags, battle damage from when they took over, that kind of thing. And that is very much a Disneyland style of doing things. So if you think about Disneyland's Pirates area, it's actually sort of sat within a New Orleans style French and Spanish colonial mix together. And it's a style that I think is fantastic and fascinating, and something that I really wanted to try and do. But also, I'm a big fan of Efteling's pirate area, which is there's a pirate ship ride, and then there's the Flying Dutchman, which is what our water coaster here is loosely based on. That's what we're working on today, is the queue line, the entrance for that Flying Dutchman ride, or style ride, sorry. So some of the elements of this area are based on Efteling, which in turn is based on sort of Dutch colonial buildings. The Dutch obviously having a very famous and long history with shipping and travel and colonialism. And so there was a lot of that already in the area based on Efteling's buildings. But then here with the entrance and exit, we actually work on the exit for the ride as well, which is the arcade that we built previously. I am very much going for a Disneyland vibe, which is much closer to like a French colonial, like a Creole style build. Sorry, went a little bit deep into architecture there. I don't normally go that deep into that sort of stuff on Planet Coasters videos, but there you go. I reference a lot of this, even if it looks thrown together. A lot of thought does go into this, even if you can't tell. Yeah, but I had a lot of fun putting this together. So the only real issue I had was kind of tying those two themes together. Now, architecturally, there isn't. They're not a million miles away, which is good. They're both in, Dutch and French and Spanish colonialism are all a form of sort of Renaissance, really. They're harking back to a much older style of architecture, so they have that in common across them, and also a lot of ornament and detail across all of them as well. And it means we're allowed to use some of these gorgeous iron pieces from the small town set from Parade's pack. You'll know this about me if you've been watching the channel for a while. I will always use the scenery that I need to use to make a project work, but I am a big fan of using the new stuff, and I know. So I don't try and hide that at all, honestly. I will build stuff because it uses new pieces. I enjoy the process of learning the new pieces and getting the most out of them. I'm trying my best here to make sure it still works as part of the larger narrative of the park, but I will always favour new stuff for a while because I just enjoy playing with new toys, sue me. So we're using a lot of the iron pieces here, a lot of the new small town doors and windows. They look great, but also they do, lend themselves to this theme, and I think we would struggle to do a lot of this theme without them, honestly. A lot of the pirate stuff is still quite usable. The fidelity on it is quite low, honestly, because it's been ported over from the first game, and also it was the oldest of the themes from the first game. It was, it was the alpha theme. It was pretty much the first thing we got to ever play with. So because of that, it does look a little dated in some parts, and so I'm using it sparingly, and also there's just a few bugs with it for some reason. I don't know why. It seems like every update seemingly breaks some of the pirate stone or something. So this time all of the stone that sort of surrounds the doorways now has like a very bright color as part of its mortar that you just can't seemingly change. Some of them are yellow, some of them are white. I think one of them might be red even. Very peculiar. Don't know why it's happening. Don't know why it happens to... I assume, scenery pieces that weren't touched at all, but there's something's going on there where they just don't quite line up, and it's a weird one. So I only think we have one or two doors used so far where it affects, and I'm just going to leave them there for now because I'm hoping for a fix from Frontier. But yeah, it is kind of weird that we get these little odd changes. Here then, building some iron railings using, again, some of those gorgeous iron pieces from the small town set, and then also just some piping. I actually think I go back and change that fence. It looks nice and it's quite ornate, but I think in the end I needed something a little bit more customizable to work within the space. For those of you who don't recognize it, because I'm not doing a very good job, or just because it's not a park you know very well, this is based on Disneyland's entrance to Pirates of the Caribbean, although we are using this as the exit building, and then the entrance building of Pirates of our ride here is based off of the gate entrance. So there's like a beautiful iron gate with foliage all over it, and you walk through that into a queue line that then takes you round the front courtyard of one of these it kind of looks a little bit like a cabildo, I think they're called. It's like a council building that would have been built for the colonist country to have a sort of official point of residence in the area. So they would, it would basically be like a governmental building. You see these a lot in places like Buenos Aires. Anywhere that has like a French quarter might have a building similar to this. They're beautiful ornate buildings. They usually have a sort of majestic tower at the front, and that's kind of what we're loosely basing this on, is Disneyland's version of one of these. And then the actual entrance to the ride is based on the gated entrance to that space as well. So it was really just having a lot of fun with the new pieces, but also sort of making them work within the style that we've already got in the area, which is very heavily based on Efteling, which in turn is based on Dutch colonialism. But then also the thing with Efteling's area is it's a little bit more whimsical. So interestingly, and perhaps slightly surprisingly, the Disneyland buildings are fairly realistic. They're use a lot of forced perspective to make the taller structures look taller than they are. Obviously, they are still a little stylized. It is a theme park, and there's some creative liberties taken with how the space is designed. But for the most part, the actual sort of architecture of the space is fairly straightforward and realistic. Whereas the Efteling architecture does lean slightly more into the whimsical, using a lot of boat shapes to create roof lines, having sort of masts come out from the buildings. Although you do see sort of like flag masts a lot in these larger governmental buildings, but here they're very much sort of meant to be sails, and the buildings sort of lean into the slightly more whimsical nature of the park on a whole. The area around the Flying Dutchman, I'm not going to try and use the proper names, I'm sorry, I will butcher them, I'm sure. But the area around the Flying Dutchman is also based on the artwork of a Dutch artist called Anton Pieck, I think. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I apologize if I am. And he has this incredible whimsical yet sort of slightly creepy nature to it, I suppose. At first glance, it looks very sort of classic sort of Victorian artwork, but as you look at it a little bit more, you can see that there's a lot more sort of weathered texture, dark colors. It's very cozy, yet it has that sort of slight sort of creepiness to it, I suppose. It's sort of romantic, but also a little grim, I guess, for want of a better word. And for the longest time, I think I've really struggled to put my finger on what I enjoy as an artistic style in a lot of this sort of stuff. And what I'm trying to say is I've often wondered why I'm drawn so much to places like Efteling. And I think that example of that sort of cozy yet slightly creepy is a perfect way to describe the sort of thing that I find nostalgic growing up as a European. I'm British. I lived in the UK until I was 30. Then I moved over to Canada, where I've been for, well, I was 30 something when I moved over here. I've been here for about 7 or 8 years. But I am British, but I've always considered myself to be European. I was very lucky as a family to be able to travel Europe a lot growing up. My parents are actually big soccer followers, so we would spend a lot of our summers traveling around watching England play soccer, which is something that didn't particularly interest me. I mean, I do still follow it internationally now. I'm enjoying the World Cup very much, but as a kid, I would often sit there in the stadium with a book, and I would read a lot of Terry Pratchett, which I think also is a great example of that sort of cozy, nostalgic yet slightly grim. All comes from grim fairy tales, stories by Hans Christian Andersen, and I think that that sort of what's the word? Sort of melancholy nature to a lot of our history and a lot of our stories. I think is something that's very European, and something that I need to sort of keep reminding myself about this park is that it is meant to be a European park. I'm not necessarily placing this down anywhere on a map, but I do want to try and get across some of those European sensibilities when it comes to theming. I want to try and have some of the areas here feel a little awkward and a little creepy, but still a little nostalgic. I don't necessarily want it to feel like it's been through the Disney shiner, like a lot of fairy tales have. Don't get me wrong, I adore all the Disney stuff, always have, grew up as a big Disney kid. But with this project, I really want to try and sort of focus in on that slightly awkward, slightly sort of just uncomfortable feeling that a lot of European folklore has. So things like the troll that I built in the last episode, it isn't a cute troll. It's meant to look a little gross and a little ugly and a little janky, even though this is a high-budget park, because that's just the style of the graphic that we're going for, that we're just looking at leaning into that a little bit, and it's something I want to sort of really make sure I keep doing as we move forward here, and you're going to see it. I feel like we kind of hit that with Astrolore, again, mostly because we're sort of basing it on Efteling, on Symbolica. Just Disney would never have a room where it's a greenhouse, but behind the glass there's a whale. right? There's not enough of a frame of reference there, and not enough of a point of reasoning there for Disney to do something like that. Even though Disney will, be the first to talk about magic and mysticism and craziness and taking you to other worlds or whatever, it all still has a lot more of a narrative than a lot of the stuff I find in Europe has, where for the most part it'll just be, here's a weird thing, look, and there might be some tenuous life lesson tied to it. I'm thinking of things like Aesop's fables, which I believe are quite European. I don't really hear those get talked about here much, other than like a few that have very famously moved into the zeitgeist, like the tortoise and the hare and things like that. But even then, I don't really feel like they're as prevalent a narrative device here as they are in Europe. So anyway, that was a hell of a tangent just to say that I'm trying to keep this place still looking a little weird. I had a lot of fun putting this together, though, and like I say, really sort of tying it together. I think it needs a little bit more work just to tie these couple of buildings together with the rest of the space, and I think the way that I'm going to do that is by making these a little bit more fantastical. In this one, I only really base the bottom here on the Disneyland build, and then the top half is a mix of the other building next to it, and then again trying to sort of tie it into the space we've already got by using some of the boat windows that I've already built, repurposing those in a different way. And I think that's the way we're going to really tie these together, is by just like whimsying these ones up a little bit by just adding in some pirate stuff and just little moments that otherwise wouldn't really make much sense. Like one of the buildings that I'm going to work on in a moment, a tower. The tower was just to sort of break up the two buildings next to each other, but it is loosely based on the Floridian entrance to Pirates of the Caribbean. They have this nice sort of, I think it's a clock tower. I make this into a bell tower because I think the bells are great, and there's not going to be many chances I get to use them here in the park, I don't think, so really wanted to add one of those. Yeah, just going back in and sort of affecting the whimsical nature of the build by adding in some fun things. But had a lot of fun putting this iron together. Realised how long I spent on it before covering most of it up with some shrubs. But I still think by the end, all of the layers work really nicely together. I had a little issue with using these resort pieces. I adore these, by the way. I get a lot of people ask me what these are. The plaster in the game is fantastic, but if you ever need something that's a little smaller and a little bit more customizable, these are actually resort pieces. When you pick them in the menu, they're covered in I don't know what the name of the flower is. It's like the Fiji flower, the sort of Hawaiian flower. I want to say it's not ipecac. What's it called? I can't think. But that, you know exactly what I mean. You have a pair of swim shorts that that have this pattern on, I'm sure. So it uses those, but it has full color slots, and you can make each of those color slots the same, and it just gives you an absolutely beautiful, slightly rough texture. They come in lots of different shapes and sizes. Actually, I don't think they do. I think they come in a square and a rectangle. But between those and the scaling, you're able to actually make lots of different shapes and sizes. You can spin them around to make archways. You'll see that basically the whole last couple of buildings I built in this episode have pretty much exclusively used them as the walls pieces, because I just find that they are very customizable. They work everywhere I need to, and also the LODs are pretty good on them. As you zoom out, they don't adjust much. They're just kind of perfect for this sort of stuff, so I can't recommend them enough if you're looking at needing a build where you want a little bit more character to the walls rather than just the plain plaster or art shapes, I guess. I mean, I will use art shapes as walls occasionally, but yeah, those resort pieces are basically, they're the modern windows as walls. I'm sure if any of you have been around since Planet Coaster 1 days will remember windows as walls. We used to use the back of one of the castle windows for this sort of stuff because, again, it just had that slightest bit of texture to it, and it was like a matte finish, so it just worked a lot better compared to art shapes. And that was back when we had very limited options for walls as well. The whole giving us a couple of pieces of each wall off the grid, I think that's new to Planet Coaster 2. I don't remember that being in the first game. So if you ever wanted to do things like that, you had to take each individual piece off the grid and then have a building with lots of different grids. But now also, alongside those off-the-grid pieces, you have the ability to scale them, and you actually have the ability to rotate gridded pieces now as well. You have to rotate the whole building that they're in, so you might still find that you're sort of breaking up lots of building into lots of different buildings to make that happen. But still, between all of those options, you've got so many different cool ways to build walls now. I think it's really worth sort of exploring some of them and moving away from just using the in-game wall pieces, which is just something I very, very rarely do these days. Saying that, the next thing we go on to build is some of the interior queue line of this, and I do actually go ahead and use some of the sandstone arch pieces from the pirate set. They didn't seem to break with this weird colour thing that we're getting occasionally, and you can recolor them as well. I don't believe they were ever recolorable in the first game. But now they are in the second game, and it means you can take the edge off of that sort of real deep browny red that they have and bring them down into, in my opinion, a more usable sort of colour space. Although I'm not really one to talk about colour, for those of you who don't know, I'm super colourblind, so very often get some of this stuff wrong. I think the building on the left is a little green, and that was a plan. But let me know if it's too green, perhaps I could do something about it. So here then, I wanted to sort of tap this building off, and I think both of these buildings might even need another layer of forced perspective to give them a couple of little tower pieces with some more ornate roofing. One thing I didn't do in either of these buildings, and looking back at my reference images, that a lot of them do have these sort of ornate tower structures basically in the middle of them that often have some like vents for like air, to get some air into the place, and beautiful ornate roofing. So I might go back and try and add a couple of those, and then maybe bring a couple of those types of buildings, those types of things over to the other buildings that I've built that are more in the line with like Dutch architecture, and see if we can sort of just continue to tie all this together, because whilst I think for the most part this all works together, I do think the two sort of sides now that I've built, the entrance and exit to the pirate ride, and then the other building that's basically just a facade. I think there's one of them's got like I called it a creperie, but we don't have crepes in the game. But there's a little sort of quick service restaurant and a restroom, I think, on the side of the building here. But other than that, it's mostly just, it will eventually be the edge of the show building that's going to house the ride that you can see bits of behind you there. I've been working on and off for quite a while with this one. Astralore, which was our sort of big Symbolica style dark ride, that sort of kind of tapped me out for dark rides for a little while. So whilst I occasionally potter with the interior of this ride, I am not necessarily burnt out with dark rides, but I'm enjoying doing some exterior stuff for now, mostly because you get to see it a bit more. Like we're going to go in a moment and work on the interior of the queue line here, and it is a lot of fun to do, but at some point you just put a big grey roof on the top of it and you rarely go back and see it again. So whilst doing it, I was very conscious of that, and I haven't gone to like insane levels of detailing inside the queue lines, because whilst they are very fun to do, I feel like my piece count is better spent on the exterior areas of the park. So we still try and make it look nice and sort of tied into the rest of the space, but it is a little lighter themed than I perhaps think you would maybe expect. So, but we'll see. Maybe it needs to go back and have another pass. You can let me know as to whether or not that's something we're going to have to do. So yeah, this tower then is loosely based on the one at Disneyland Florida as part of the entrance. The entrance to Pirates of the Caribbean there is a little bit more sort of classic piratey, just a couple of like stucco archways and lots of banners and bunting. And they have this gorgeous tower. It's a little fatter and wider than the one I'm building here. Obviously, I'm a little bit sort of tied into the space we're working with. But I'm pretty happy with how this comes out. And again, I just kind of wanted to get that slight European vibe to it. So rather than the base being just plain, or perhaps having like a fake doorway, I feel like I would imagine this having in Europe, this would just be like a door that doesn't do anything. In America, sorry. In Europe, this is a perfect opportunity to have a weird statue that farts at you when you throw a coin. Like that's the kind of That's the kind of thing it would have if it was a European park. So I go back and place a parrot in there, and I might look at doing a little parrot voiceover that plays on a loop there, and maybe stick it to one of the magical moments, although I want to make sure I don't do just too many of those around the place, like that's a new feature and something we are expanding on in the park, but I don't necessarily want to have like 50 of those things around, and we already have 2 sort of in that courtyard for the pirate area. So you can let me know whether or not that's something you do think can work there space wise. If not, we might just have some like little loops. Like, it's the sort of thing, I say that it's a very European thing, but if you think about North American parks, they do at least used to have a lot more of this sort of stuff. I feel like due to budget cuts, mostly, like post-COVID stuff, a lot of that sort of stuff did die away. But if you think of like the fountain in the bazaar at Universal Islands of Adventure, I think it was at one point part of like Lost Continents sort of space. And there was a fountain there, and it's literally a fountain with a speaker in it, and a guy sat to one side. I don't know whether he's sat up in a building looking out of a window, or if he's sat in the quick service restaurant nearby with a coffee. I don't know, but he would sit there with a microphone and basically just have fun with the guests. Universal probably maybe the only ones that do this much anymore in North America. They do the Shrunken Head as part of the night bus in Harry Potter. That very often has a character artist, voice actor artist working with it. I can't really think of many situations in Disney that does that, although maybe I'm just not necessarily looking for them. Like Disney does have character meets and greets, of course, and even things that are more established than that, like Belle's Adventure, where you go through the house and a few of you act out parts of the story. I was what was I? Last time we did it, I think I was one of the suits of armor, and my son was the salt pot. good memories. So there's things like that, but I can't think of many places at Disney where there's just sort of stuff happening. There's things like the barbershop, the piano player, there's definitely sort of like character meet and greets, but I can't think of anything where it's just a character with a just a guy with a microphone pretending to be a character. But maybe I'm just misremembering. You can let me know in the comments if you can think of anything. But yeah, I still feel like there's something very there's sort of very European coded to that kind of stuff that they're able to be a little bit coarse, perhaps a little maybe rude is too strong of a word, but they can be a bit cheesy. They can point out what somebody's wearing, that kind of stuff. I just don't feel like it's very Disney coded, that kind of thing. I think Universal do a lot of that sort of stuff better. I'm thinking of more examples as I talk about it. The Decepticon that hangs out outside of the Transformers ride. I'm not really a Transformers guy. Megatron, I think, is his name. Really awesome character work there from somebody who both models and voices the character. I believe. I don't think it's two separate people. It may well be, but I feel like it's doable by one person, that job. But they do a fantastic job. The donkey, when you meet Shrek and Donkey, the donkey is very expressive and chatty, and is clearly not using a pre-recorded voice box, soundboard, or whatever you want to call them. But then if you think of Disney, they have the Stormtroopers. As far as I know, the Stormtroopers use pre-recorded voices, which they could not. They could train them up well enough to just be comfortable speaking to the public, but they kind of want to. I think the idea with Disney is they're a bit more sentient to having the very similar experience every time somebody goes, and just it's not worth the risk of one of the voice actors just getting a little bit fast and loose one day and saying something that they maybe regret in the moment. I don't know. I'm really just sort of spitballing here and talking in general about how this sort of stuff works. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but that would make sense to me if somebody told me, the reason that Disney don't do that stuff is it's difficult for them to really sort of keep tabs on it and make sure it's always that Disney level experience that people are used to and sort of expect. So okay, here we go then. Doing some of the interior. I don't show the whole interior build here because honestly, in a moment we're going to get real funky with the camera. and it gets a little tricky to show it off well. But I kind of wanted to show you the idea of what we're doing here. Place down the... there you go, you see some of those funny colour edges on the stone there, but a couple of them are okay. I ended up just using this resort door here for an implied staff door. We're not really spending too long on interior staff-only areas, honestly, at this point. Here, I repurposed this from the Days of Christmas store, actually. I think it works perfect here and helps us sort of open up this this queue line into, you know, what could be a little bit of a showroom. I don't necessarily know what the show would be other than some sort of voice effects and some smoke effects, maybe some lighting, that kind of thing. But yeah, the next bit I have to do off camera because, well, there's just too much going on. Alright, so let's get on the ground and take a look at it then. A lot of the feedback I got from the video the other day where I spoke about how sort of tough time-lapses can be, a lot of feedback was that, well, why not do a little bit of both? Let's start with time-lapse, and then we really love that sort of real-time show of it afterwards. It kind of helps really sort of place it in the park as a larger project, and I completely agree. I think it's a great idea, so here we go. So I do feel like you can draw a line down this screen right now, and on the left you have very Efteling coded area, and on the right you have a very Disneylandy coded area. And maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on myself, but I don't necessarily think they tie together particularly well right now. So I do plan to go and sort of whimsify the right side and maybe de-whimsify the left side even a little. But you have to let me know in the comments as to whether it really needs it. But I do feel like there needs to be a little bit of time spent just tying the two areas together. I don't think it's impossible, but at the moment they don't quite sit, and I think also it's partly because the right side has been done much later in the game, where I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with the pieces, and we have a lot more pieces to play with, and I feel like I am getting a little better in my skill set compared to the left-hand side. But I do love the charm of the left, and I don't necessarily want to just rebuild the whole thing. So I am going to spend a bit of time just sort of tying them both together a little bit, and in doing so having a little bit of a pass at the left side and tightening it up a little bit. All right. Anyway, let's go through into the queue line for Maelstrom. So I don't think I mentioned the name of the ride yet. Maelstrom, the Siren's Curse. So Maelstrom is my little nod to what I think is probably one of the best water coasters in the world, and that was Maelstrom at Norway in Epcot, and I was a big fan of it. It's frozen now, and that's fine. I'm not one of these people that's super against the sort of March of Progress, and I actually think the Frozen ride's pretty good, especially that they have the proper sort of animatronics. But I was a big fan of Maelstrom, so this is my little nod to them. And then the Siren's Curse, that's the awesome music that you can hear. I've got to get some speakers over this side, but if I come back here, you should hear... I think I just heard the siren. Or maybe the song just finished. Oh yeah, I can hear the beating of the drum. But the awesome piece of music that Alex has put together for the area is called A Tale Yet to Be Seen, and it is the story of sirens calling the pirates to their rock, saying, don't go into the sea, don't go and explore, instead stay with us where it's safe. And they crash up on the rocks, and they... I don't know what they do. Do they eat them? They have sex with them? Both, maybe? I don't know. I don't really know what a siren does, but you don't want to go near a siren anyway. So this ride will be themed around the idea there of sirens. We have the standby entrance and the Zoom Pass entrance, which is MeanderVille's Priority Pass. These are functional. This does have the Priority Pass queue line. In Astralore, it doesn't. I may go back and re-edit it, but that's a hell of a change, so we'll see. But this is actually functional as a Zoom Pass entrance, and we have our warning signs here saying don't go on it if you're pregnant or scared of sirens or whatever. So, okay, let's walk down the queue line then. So this first area is meant to be like a holding area, a sort of big storage area, dry area for product for the storage company, the shipping company. This is awesome, by the way. This is from Planet Coaster 1. It has barrels roll out of it, but if you just turn it off, I think it's just a real great piece of scenery. So we use that there. We come down this way. This awesome marble slab floor. It's actually a wall piece, but I think it works perfectly as a floor here. And then we come in. I will say this area is pretty dark. There's areas where the sun still pokes through here and here. That will go when we get an actual roof on the place, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, there's little spots of this that are a little dark. But honestly, watching through time lapses, like point of views of queue lines, they kind of are this dark. It's pretty crazy. And we may come back in and have a slight pass at this to get a little bit more theme. But like I said, I don't want to go crazy in here because me showing you this now is... probably the last time you're going to see it, really. So you know, it is what it is. These are Viking braziers with a sorcery orb put in them. You can set the fire to black. It pretty much disappears, although you do get that little bit of smoke off the top of them, so it's a little bit more noticeable than I thought it was, so I may have to go back in and change those out for something else. It's a shame because the shape of them is awesome. We'll come down here. It's that little staff entrance we did. And then we come down here, and then this is the priority pass here. I'm using Leaf's awesome mod for removing the gates, the entrance and exit gates, although it doesn't currently include the priority gate one, although I have spoke to him and he said it's a pretty easy fix and he's going to get working on it. And he also told me to tell you that if he doesn't, you're welcome to go to his comments and moan that he hasn't done it and call him a poopy head. He said you could do that. Okay, right at the end of the video, I want to show you something else I've been working on. This is for you special folks who stick it out to the very end. I appreciate you. One thing I've noticed looking across a lot of theme parks is that we don't have enough... Point at those barbershops. You point at them. Yeah, go ahead, give them a point. We don't have enough restrooms. They're everywhere in theme parks. They're tucked away in every single corner that they can squeeze one in, and it wasn't something that I was consciously working on in MeanderVille, and I've made corrections for that. So here is our first one. What was just a tower now opens up into a small restroom there. So we've got a nice little sort of foyer area with drinking fountains. And then it opens out into a functional restroom back there, which is why it's so dark, because they're just like black pits, the restrooms in the game. Might go and stick some restroom stall doors on these, maybe, just because it just looks like the abyss. I don't know, we'll see. I think over here could do with one. So I'm thinking of pushing back the parade gate here. There will be a big gate here. Taggy's working on a video about how to do gates that stay open as long as you need for a parade. So I'm holding on for that before I try and work on a gate here. But I'm thinking I might push it back a little bit, and on the side of this building add a restroom there. I think that makes sense for good space for one. But then we also have a few down here as we work down Discovery Way. Excuse me. Oh, we're going pretty quick. Gonna race down here. One thing I noticed is a lot of the places, they don't have the restrooms in a restaurant, but they'll have one very near a restaurant. So it's the restaurants themselves don't have restrooms, but there's always one nearby. So we managed to squeeze one. Oh, here comes the tram. Excuse me. We managed to squeeze one in here between Days of Christmas and FaZe's gift store. And this was just a blank wall. I mean, it's silly of me to not figure this out beforehand. This is the perfect spot for a restroom. So we've got a couple of those things, vending machines, totally blanked there, and then a little restrooms just here. I love these, by the way. I use these a lot in this area. It's kind of like a running theme. These are the toy box letters that go on the toy box block. But if you make them all the same color as the stone you're working on, to me that just looks like it's chipped away out of the stone, and I think that's great. You'll see that a lot around the place. I think it's a really neat way of doing a sign. So yeah, smaller restroom there, again with the water fountains, and then the last one we did was right over here by the new gate that we built in the last episode. Again, there was just like a blank wall here, and it made sense to have a restroom fairly near the conservatory. I mean, there's also a world where maybe this has a second entrance and it enters into the conservatory, because we should be able to just cut through. I mean, there's the back of the conservatory. The game sticks you to the path, so it might be tricky to do. But there's an argument for like that door being toilets, you know, and that would make sense to open into the back of those. So we could also say that happens. We could maybe do a sign. It's got like a second entrance, but it just made sense to me to have one over here. And this is loosely based on a restroom at Epic Universe, because, you know, well, this is, so why not that as well? And I'm going to very quickly finish off by showing you how all of that sits in the park. In the last video I did where I talked about how time lapses are my preferred choice, but do have their issues. One of the great bits of feedback I got a few times was that whilst time lapses are great, it's difficult to really tell where you are in the park at the time and how the sort of smaller project you're working on speaks to the larger build. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time afterwards in an episode sort of showing off how everything sits. So you can see each of these restrooms now. We have one there, and then the other two sit over here, and they're just sort of out of the way, keeping guests happy, but they don't really affect the skyline or the walkthrough or anything like that. And I think, like I said, if we just push this gate stuff back a little bit, one on the side of this building would work really well as well. So that's the plan. Here, I want to talk to you a little quick moment here, but first of all, you've really stuck this out if you're here listening to me talk about toilets. So in the comments, I'm interested to see who gets to the end, but I don't want to make it obvious to people who don't. So in the comments, if you've just watched me talk about toilets for 5 minutes, give me the best name for a toilet? What do you like a funny name for going to the toilet? That's what I want to know. What do you call it? Let me know in the comments, because that'll look really weird to people who didn't make it to the end. I think that'll be fun. Anyway, I want to do something here. I would really love to do a theatre, like a theatre exterior build using some of the new pieces. I think it would fit really well with the style we've got here. And now we're sort of developing and sort of adding in these sort of fake shop fronts around the place. I'm also working on an idea that fits Fizzlewick is now being mentioned a few times. There's Fizzlewick balloon tours there, and the balloon. The face painting is Fizzlewick's face painting, Professor Fizzlewick. So I kind of like the idea of maybe the mayor character. I think it's Penny Whistle. No, what's it called? This guy, the guy who sits on here. Oh man, what's his name? Mayor something. I'm kind of thinking that maybe he can be Fizzlewick, and that's like a running theme, is that he's like an explorer, like a gentleman explorer. Think of what's the guy, like Around the World in 80 Days, Journey to the Center of the Sea, center of the. What's his name? What's the guy in Around the World in 80 Days? You know? No. Ali's looking blank at me. I can't. What's his name? Fozzie? No. Anyway, somebody in the comments let me know. That guy. I'm thinking of making it so that that's that, and then because we're getting a bit of a sort of adventurer, explorer vibe going on a lot of places. Rockets going around, talks of worlds and lands and stuff. So maybe the whole idea of MeanderVille is that Fizzlewick is this sort of gentleman explorer, and he's traveling to all of these lands, and you're sort of going along with him on the journey. I love that sort of as a motif, and I think it's something we lean into a little bit. So because of that, I think a theatre down here, that if we can squeeze it in, just like a little flat ride back here, so it'll just be the front and the foyer, and then the guests sort of wander off into a room that we don't see that's got a flat ride in it, just to get guests down here. I think that'd be a real nice way of capping off this otherwise pretty huge show building right by the entrance of a park. So I think if we turn this into a theatre front, then this building here becomes the sort of entry points of the park, sort of thinking something with a big tower, quite grandiose, with the gates to the side of it, and then they sort of walk in through the gates, and then they're there, and then there's an activity right here at the door, and think of it as like the Hall of Presidents, or the Carousel of Progress, or Ellen's Energy Adventure. Oh look, 20 minutes of aircon before we have to go on another roller coaster. I think that's a really great fit, but it is going to be a squeeze, because this black that you're looking at, this is the back of Astralore's sort of big show building with the small structure in. So it's going to be a squeeze to fit something in here, I think, and we've also got to get the end of a parade fitting in here somewhere as well. Maybe that has to come over to this side. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you think that'll fit. And then finally, here's what we've worked on over here in Testudo. I think this area is really getting boxed off nicely. All of this, like from this corner here to this corner here, will be show building. And this will all just get a big roof on it. And obviously the rest of the ride as well. I'm not quite ready to show off any of this yet, but the rest of the ride there, and then the ride comes out of the show building and into the exterior area. So it's going to be a big old show building, but again, looking at real parks and sort of looking at top-down views on them, this is what they look like. The actual percentage of the area that guests can get to whilst not on a ride is probably about half, and the other half is behind the scenes, show buildings, staff areas. Like all of this will be staff area here. This will be a huge show building as part of Keladir. Sorry, there we go. This area here is called Keladir. It's going to be our sort of Arabian Nights area. So happy with how it's all coming out. I think we tie these buildings together a little bit more, but otherwise I'm really happy with progress. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm absolutely vibing in this project right now. I'm having such a blast working in it, and I'm really appreciating all the feedback. It's really keeping me motivated, so please continue to throw that down below. I appreciate you. Love you all to bits. Thanks for watching. Till the next one, be good.